What you are about to see are security video recordings from May 12, 2008, where a person under psychiatric duress encounters a security guard.
You see me? Can you see me? It's too late. Hi there. I was just asking, would you know my name if I brought this recorder in right now?
Your what?
My name.
Your name?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Do you know my name?
No.
You don't? Do you work for the CBC?
Yes.
Are you sure? Are you not a spy? You're not guard for any government? Am I having a conspiracy theory with the recorder?
No.
Do I know about 9/11 in the CBC?
Excuse me?
Do I know about 911 in the CBC?
Yes.
Because it's very important that you're clear right now, or I'm going to murder psychically everyone in the CBC.
Why?
Too late. That was the sound of the audio recorder I was carrying being turned off as I left the building. And as you can tell, the person under psychiatric duress was me. And this was the result. 2 counts of uttering a death threat, contrary to the Criminal Code of Canada, ×2. And what this is called disclosure, even though the person who wrote that there spelled it wrong. This is me, and this is my queen. And this is the logo of the Toronto Police. And this was the officer in charge. And he's now retired, it being the year 2013. I'd like to make a video document and take you through the disclosure. Most importantly, all these little green index tabs which run through the disclosure. These are mostly all references to me having taken video and photo documents on May 12, 2008, which I did not take. You may wonder how there was such good sound for that encounter with the security guard. Well, I was carrying this, as I mentioned previously. It's called an Olympus digital voice recorder. As you can tell, it's pretty small, has no lens, has no buttons like a phone. And if I was holding it in front of you, a foot away from your face like I was with that security guard, you would probably see this. The eyelets, which are the microphones, and a monochrome LED display. And remember, I was going recorder, recorder. And as you saw, the security video recordings and the recording of audio I made myself synchronized perfectly. Let's go through this disclosure. This is what you receive on the request of your lawyer. It's a compilation of police records, witness testimony, forensic documents, all compiled for the prosecution so that they can convict you with it. Basically, it shows you where you stand, and whether you should plead guilty or innocent and go through a trial. These are how the charges are written. In the Toronto region, did by word of mouth knowingly utter a threat. Well, I can tell you, when you're having a psychiatric episode, you're not uttering anything knowingly. My situation was, I thought I was being followed, stalked, baited, provoked, tricks played on me, so on and so forth. A psychiatric episode, it's called. This is a synopsis for a guilty plea. After you're arrested, and you go to jail, and in my case, a solitary confinement cell, where I was beaten by guards because I was having a uncontrollable psychiatric episode. Once you get out on bail, or a bail program, if you're allowed bail at all, which thankfully I was, you receive this synopsis for a guilty plea, and it lists out the charges against you. And again, you have the choice of pleading innocent or guilty to these charges. So let's read through them together. And just a note that Tuesday, May 12, 2008 was a Monday, not a Tuesday. At approximately 1:25 p.m., the accused before the court, Stephen O'Keefe, was in the area of the CBC building located at 25 John Street in the city of Toronto. At this time, the accused was observed on security camera videotaping the building from the outside. The accused then entered the building and approached the first victim, Fernando Serrano Orduna, who is a security officer for the CBC building. Now, before I read these statements that I never made to you, I probably should make sort of a funny voice, because if I don't, this recording could be used to compile another greatest hits of things I never said. So I'll just use a funny voice when I'm reading these, okay? The accused stated,
"Do you know the number for 9/11?
The victim was confused and attempted to clarify the question, at which time the accused stated,
Because I'm going to kill everyone in the CBC.
The second victim, Sheila O'Donnell, who was also an employee for the CBC, overheard the conversation and attempted to assist. The accused stated,
Too late.
and once again stated,
I'm going to kill everyone in the CBC.
The accused then backed away slowly from the desk and took a photo of both the victims. The accused then stated,
I have your picture.
The accused then fled the scene and was last seen walking on Wellington Street. Police were notified and a report was filed. The victims feared for their safety, and security for the building doubled the presence of uniformed officers and put everyone on alert about the threats made by the accused. Now, we could go on with this stuff, but we're trying to stick to the stuff of that date. At approximately 9:49 p.m. on May 12, 2008, the accused was observed by a security officer loitering in an elevator of the CBC building, and that never happened either, so we'll just move on. But I want you to take note of this from May 13, 2008. This was the day after, when I was actually arrested. And you can see they said the accused was immediately recognized by security, who in turn placed the accused under arrest. And I can tell you myself, as soon as I showed up on the 13th, they got me and brought me right into the security room. This is an exhibit list of exhibits which are going to be perhaps introduced in the trial, if you do have a trial. The first, as you can see, is a Nikon, well, they called it an f106 camera, even though it's a 601. So they saw that this camera was simply too large to be obscured from the security video recordings, and also too large for me to hide under my jacket either. It would have created quite a bulge. So it's rather interesting that they mention having the video and the camera and the Olympus voice recorder, which looks like that, and was something small enough to actually have in my hand at the security desk. So they had it all, but yet never made the deduction that this could not have been in front of the security desk. It was simply too big and unable to be hidden. These are just the security video recordings which the security department burns on DVD for the police. And the property report confirms it again. There's the, well, they call it a Nikon f160 camera there, and it's a 601. And more of the property was the Olympus voice recorder again, and just USB keys I used to keep data on at that point in time. This is just something where they say I had a Citizen watch with a blue face, and I was not even wearing a watch on the 12th or 13th of May 2008, and the watch I use is a Timex, usually, black face type of thing. Anyway, that's incidental. And look at this. The suspect repeated the threat a second time with more conviction.
I'm gonna kill everyone in the CBC.
Red Sony digital camera phone. Okay, these are false statements. And we have to address them for what they are, which is false statements. Now we know that false statements are also called lies, but for the purpose of this recording, we'll just call them false statements, even though, as you can see, they grow and grow and grow like Pinocchio's nose, where he continued to take photographs and shake his fist. False statement. The watch with the blue face again. To go through all this would take over an hour, but for a while they floated that this person could be another victim. But as you'll see as we go ahead, they must have reviewed the security video recordings from my arrest, and what he was claiming just couldn't have happened, as you'll see. These are the statements of victim number 2. Her name was Sheila O'Donnell, and she worked for the public relations area of the CBC. Now, by the time of the trial on February 2nd, 2009, she no longer worked for them. Her statements regarding the photography were: turned back and took a photo of the security desk with a digital camera. False statement. Silver digital camera. And again, that conflicts with the red Sony camera, which was just described there. False statement. These are the statements of Fernando Serrano Orduna. He was victim number 1, the security guard I interacted with on May 12, 2008. His statements were interesting, to say the least, such as this one. And this is what he's saying. I said, quote,
You know to dial 911, because I'm going to kill everybody at the CBC.
and I do recall on the trial on February 2nd, 2009, while on the witness stand, Serrano Orduna stated that I said, and I quote,
I'm going to kill you.
end quote. Anyway, let's just stick to the photography. Using a small digital camera. False statement. Small metallic red-colored Sony brand digital camera. False statement. This was the possible victim number 3. His name is Brian Korshens. I believe he was a supervisor, someone at a top level at the CBC Security. This was his statement, May 13th, 2008. He said, the accused then tried to take a picture of the writer. Korshens being the writer. Now I recall when I was arrested on the 13th of May, 2008, I had this camera wrapped around my back on a Nikon strap. But don't believe me. Let's go back to the synopsis for a guilty plea. Remember what I told you to take note of back there? The accused was immediately recognized by security, who in turn placed the accused under arrest. Now there's no wiggle room with immediately here. And like I said earlier, when I arrived, they got me right away, so there's no time to be taking photos of security guards. Now you may wonder how they got this camera on the 13th, but nothing on the 12th. Well, this is what I had on the 12th of May 2008, and this is what I had on the 13th of May 2008. On the 13th, I took the camera with me. I wanted to take photos of everything. And what I ended up taking photos of were things like, dandelions at Alexandra Park near Bathurst Street, and sand in a park and the car parkette. I had no interest in taking photos of security guards at the CBC, and I didn't. So this is a false statement. If it wasn't, there were no CBC security guards on the film roll, which I processed after the camera was returned to me, so Korshens was definitely not a victim. Okay, what these are written notes by police officers who show up after everything's happened. And they interview witnesses and security guards and such. Looks like the one who was doing it was someone named Jason Tomlinson. And he wrote down statements which were imparted to him by witnesses such as silver digital camera, which he used to photograph the security desk and witnesses there. False statement. Then he stepped back and took a picture with a red, long, upright digital camera. False statement. Citizen Watch again. He had a metallic red Sony upright digital camera, white lettering. False statement. And we can't pass by this. Now these seem to be the statements of Fernando Serrano Orduna, because yes, he was the one who mentioned the red Sony camera, so this must be him. He said to this man regarding me, his pinky nail on the right hand is longer than the rest of the nails on his hand. Now you may wonder, well, why would you even bring up that? Well, what that is code to police. That I would have a long pinky fingernail here, or here, like a gangsta who scoops up cocaine with a long fingernail and snorts. That was good. Well, I can tell you that I've never done cocaine, and I'm not doing it now. And this statement about the pinky fingernail never appeared anywhere else in all this disclosure. And more importantly, when you're arrested and they put you in jail, they don't give you nail clippers. They don't give you anything to manicure yourself with. So no police officers saw this either. That's a false statement. And I could go on. It's red all over the place. And again, it would take over an hour to go through all this. So let's move on to the results of the trial and what happened there. Okay. Before we do this, I should explain why I have these documents out here. Just to be specifically clear, the only two cameras I've ever owned while I've lived in Toronto, which is over 20 years, are the Nikon F601 and this camera here, which unfortunately I can't show you right now because I'm using it to record this. But I have this model, although it's not a silver and it's black. And as you can see, the carton the camera goes in fits perfectly here. And the digital voice recorder from 2007. Again, it's significantly smaller than a camera 6 years more modern would be. So this is you know, a modern digital camera of a portable size. This is a film camera, although modern professional digital cameras do have this bulk. But as you can see, this voice recorder here, even though this is from 2007 and this is from 2011, that's a 4-year difference. So this thing is still smaller than a 4-year, more evolved digital camera of a portable nature would be. And I'll show you the receipt. Just to be totally clear here, from Future Shop in Toronto, and as you can see, the date is December 13th, 2011, and there's the camera and a camera pouch and a battery for the camera. And this is my warranty card for this Nikon F601, and as you can see, it's dated July 30th, 1995. So I'm not one to go through digital cameras. These are the only two cameras I've ever owned in Toronto. So we'll go to the trial results here. Now, as you can imagine from the synopsis for a guilty plea, I did not plead guilty. And I also didn't plead guilty because I basically didn't remember everything I said on that day, because I was making the most inane statements over and over and over everywhere I went. It was like a jumble of thoughts. I honestly didn't remember precisely what I said at the CBC building or anywhere else that day. So I pleaded not guilty, and I went through the trial, even though the Crown Attorney advised my lawyer, and my lawyer advised me, I should just plead guilty to everything. As you might expect, Fernando Serrano Orduna's statements about the camera were so firm, the judge threw out his count. The judge being Marianne Lane, I believe her name was. She's listed as M.E. Lane in these documents. Yes, there we go. But count number 2 stuck. Count number 2 was witness number 2, or victim number 2, Sheila O'Donnell. Sheila O'Donnell said, while on the witness stand, that I said something to the effect of a death threat. So yes, I received 3 years probation and a conditional discharge for saying something to the effect of a death threat. And I'll agree, saying murder psychically is death threatish, but it's certainly not a plausible death threat. And you sort of wonder, you know, if you took a random sampling of people on the street and gave them a list of 10 words, and within that list was the word murder and the word psychically, you would think that the word psychically would stick out more. Not only because it's, you know, a longer word with more syllables and would thus stick in the mind longer. It's sort of an outre word. It's sort of fringe. It's like tarot card readings, you know? And if you're trying to, you know, make someone seem really crazy and uncontrolled and so on and so forth, you might want to remember the word psychically along with the word murder. But in the statements made to the police, they didn't say murder, they said kill, and they completely forgot the word psychically, which would have made it seem like a more implausible death threat. So what a conditional discharge is that it's sort of like a conviction and a sentence, and in a way not. You get a list of conditions to adhere to for a period of time. And I got the maximum, 3 years, which is what the Crown Prosecutor wanted. And he also wanted my DNA, which the judge rejected, being an overreaching request. In any case, once you've adhered to the conditions over the period of time, the charges against you are purged by the RCMP and the police. However, it seems your fingerprints are retained by the RCMP seemingly forever. And as for, let's say, traveling to America, you might be on the no-fly list. Because Toronto police and most police now share their police records with America, and a purge or pardon is not recognized by America, while a conviction is. No bias there at all. In any case, it's very interesting how this 40-second encounter with a security guard was inflamed and blown up and made to seem like I was a terrorist. And if there's anything the police don't like more than cocaine fingernails, police really don't like terrorists. So why was everybody so out for my blood, even though there was no damage to person or property? I'll have to leave that up to you. But let's just say, in my mind, it seemed like somebody was really, really out to get me. You might say that's sour grapes because I got convicted, and in a way that's accurate, but the fact that words like murder psychically were forgotten and replaced with kill and
Now I have your photo.
are very, very interesting. All I can say is, if you're ever in a situation where the police have evidence you need to defend yourself with, and they're not going to give you back that evidence until the trial is over and you've been convicted, make sure your lawyer tells the judge, and maybe has the judge arrange the police to copy safely and securely what is on here for you to defend yourself with, which didn't happen to me, unfortunately, and I got the good old 3 years probation, which were fine. I got along with my probation officer just great. 3 years of it. In fact, at the end, she said that if I ever had any criminal incidents in the future, she would recommend parole. So, I complied with everything, especially the treatment order where I was forcibly injected with an antipsychotic called olanzapine, or Zyprexa, which has side effects like weight gain and diabetes, which they don't give you any warning or pamphlet for. And add to that the strip searches, jail, solitary confinement, beatings, hearing after hearing, and so many false statements. What was done to me was 100 times worse than what I did to anybody else, and yet that was 100% legal. And here we are, 17 months later. I did manage to show this disclosure video, which you've just seen, in advance to my friends, relatives, and acquaintances by delivering it to them on DVD. Instead of being met with group concern, or even outrage, it was met mostly with silence, as befit a network of police informants, as I was placed under some RCMP-level terrorist watch list due to the statements which were made to the Toronto Police by the CBC's employees. I did manage to commission a court transcript from February 2nd, 2009, and I can briefly take you through the legal mechanisms which are used to secure a conviction based on withheld evidence and a statement I never made. As you can see from the disclosure, the court transcript has 3 times the amount of inaccuracies and false statements. So I created a commentary, sort of a play-by-play through the day's events in court to show how decisions were arrived at, and I will post both of these to the internet. Because under the Criminal Code of Canada, section 264.1, a death threat has to meet certain criteria. It has to be uttered knowingly, it has to be directed to someone, and that person has to somehow receive it. It can't be something abstract, like threatening to murder psychically an entire building. So in the court proceedings, witness statements, such as Orduna's, were keyed to seem direct, like,
I hate everybody. I want to kill you. I want to kill everybody. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, everybody.
over and over and over. And the corroborated witness statement from O'Donnell was,
You had better call 911 because I have a plan to kill everyone in the building. You had better call 911 because I have a plan to kill everyone in the building.
O'Donnell even said it went on for 2 minutes or so, even when the entire event was just a little over 40 seconds, and O'Donnell was only at the security desk for 12 seconds, and had arrived just in time to hear a completely formed, terrorist-like statement. As I wrote in the commentary, 2 different people did hear what I really said, and yet arrived to court with the exact same corroborated statement I never made. Corroborated false witness statements changed a judge's opinions into evidence and findings of fact, which affected my entire life. Now, if my audio evidence had have been admitted by the Toronto Police instead of being withheld, the statement from Brian Courchens, who was then the manager of CBC Security, would have meant all the difference in the world. And then he asked me, he told me that I was under his mind control, and he told another officer that he was also under his mind control, and he told me as if to say he was hypnotizing me, that I was going to let him go. He said,
You're now going to let me go. You're going to let me walk out that door.
And I replied, No, I am not, which matches perfectly the statement I did make, which was that I was going to murder psychically everyone in the building. It was a completely implausible death threat and had no basis in reality. This video was presented under the decision of the Supreme Court of Canada, R v. Stinchcombe, 19 91.